Hello everyone, welcome back to another members only exclusive video, and today it is finally time to talk about the behind the scenes of the egg hunt documentary. This video had the most messy production of any video I have ever made, and obviously took the longest out of any video I've ever made, with a whopping 6.5 months put into it. I don't know where to begin. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know. I tried multiple times to organize this video the best way I could, but it never worked out for me. So I'm just gonna try and give you guys as much information as possible, alright? Usually how these behind the scenes videos run is they're split into segments of how the video was made, like its production process. So I talk about pre-production, then I talk about writing, then there's an entire segment on editing, then there's an entire segment on filming, right? Like, it's split up that way. But this video was done so all over the place, with different parts being done on different moments in time, I could never organize it like that, because there's no way. So instead, how this video is going to run is I'm going to break down the video segment by segment of how the video came out in the first place. So I'll break it down by each world, each chapter of the video, and then I'll do before and after. So it will be easier to talk about all the ins and outs that way, because, again, stuff was filmed at the beginning and the end, stuff was written at the beginning and the end, like, it's all over the place, it's hard to tell. So for each segment, I will talk about specifically little bits of information about that specific segment while showing behind the scenes bloopers and cut content on screen. And then, as always, I will end it off with the Q&A that I asked you guys to leave on my last members only community post. There's a bunch of questions you guys asked, and I'll make sure to answer all of them. But yeah, there are so many things to get into, there's so many facts to be told, and again, it was a very messy time. So I apologize in advance if I contradict myself or if I miss anything, you know, whatever. The comments are open below. If you have any further questions, I'll be sure to answer them in the comments. But hopefully, for the most part, this video gives you everything you need in terms of how this video came to be. So let's get right on into it by starting off with the pre-production phase of the video before anything came into fruition. So I think the best way to segment off and describe the process of how this video was put together throughout those 6.5 months is roughly the first 2 months were spent doing interviews, planning, and being busy, and having all of the progress be pushed back because there was just so much going on at the time, because this was January, February, busy months during school, as you may have known, and junior year is not an easy year, so it was pretty bad timing, but I was slowly making progress during those 2 months. Then the following 2 months consisted of mostly writing. That's when I started getting ideas on paper, started putting things together in my head. Everything started to become full in terms of the video's structure and what I wanted it to be, and that was me watching over the interviews, seeing what connected, and trying to make something out of that. And then finally, the last 2.5 months were spent actually making the video, actually filming and editing and putting things together for the most part. Again, there was stuff filmed during the first 2 months. Again, there was stuff written during those last 2.5 months. Like, stuff was done all over the place, but for the most part, that's the best way I can describe how it was segmented, with, you know, completely summarizing things to its most simple, basic terms and ideas, but it was a very complex process, I cannot lie. So in terms of pre-production, I guess you can consider these first 2 months. The idea for the video for making an Egg Hunt 2018 documentary is one that I've had for a while. I've had it for a long time, and after making the Myth video, I tweeted this out, but I had a couple ideas in the running for what I wanted to do. There was one where I was going to do a UGC documentary talking about Roblox UGC and the history of that. There was a documentary I had in mind about Innovation Inc., old group from back in the day. Like, there was a lot of ideas I had, but I don't know. I wish I could tell you what exactly made me want to do Egg Hunt 2018. I really don't know. I think there was just a resurgence of people talking about it online for the most part. Oh, nope, I remember, it hit me. Okay, this is how this video is going to be. I'm going to start remembering things. Okay, I know why I did this video. While I was working on the Myth documentary, there was a special event that took place that you guys may have known about, and that was the Creator Awards. The Creator Awards is a special, like, Game Awards type showcase that Unite put together with some other awesome people, and they were working on it for a while, and somehow I found out that I got nominated for Best Video of the Year, and it was for my news account video, which I thought was kind of funny. But I was nominated alongside, like, Laughability and Caden and Soybean, and I was very, very excited about it. That was a very crazy time, very eye-opening moment. But long story short, I ended up winning, and it was a crazy, crazy moment. Again, I live streamed my entire reaction on this channel that you can go find in the live stream VOD section, but man, that was that was crazy. But again, the person in charge of that was Unite. So after that happened, I kind of realized that, oh man, Unite knows who I am. So I followed him, he followed me back, and I reached out to him and messaged him, because that's when I realized what I wanted to do. I realized the egg hunt documentary was this was my perfect opportunity to go for it, because Unite I actually had a connection to one of the people who worked on the event. So I reached out to him. He was the very first person I reached out to throughout this entire videos process, all the way back in like January, February, and I asked him straight up, I'm making an Egg Hunt 2018 documentary, and first I asked if it's a good idea, and second I asked if he's interested in being interviewed for it. He responded to me and he said, yes, it's a great idea, and also that he would get me in touch with some other developers. And that's when things started to get rolling. So after that crazy occurrence, I decided before I get deep into production, I was going to do a bunch of interviews first with a bunch of people, and then see how things go from there. I'll base the entire video off those interviews. And that's actually kind of what happened. However, I think I kind of bit off more than I could chew, because Unite then reached out to a bunch of developers in 15, pretty much the entire 15 group chat, and just straight up asked if anyone was interested in being interviewed. And 2 people replied, and that was Sean, which you saw was in the video, and then somebody else who was in the video but was interested at the time, which is Bill Thomas, who was actually the team lead. That would have been a pretty big interview. So at the time, I had 3 of them on board, and I was like, man, this is crazy. So then to match the 3 developers, I then had the idea to like, okay, maybe it'll be fun to interview some people who played the event and get a non-biased perspective from them, because so far all the people who I was going to be interviewing were people who worked on the event, so that might have added a little bias to talking about how good the event was. So then I went ahead and started reaching out to YouTubers. I reached out to Dieter Plays, who I then realized was a tester for the event, so he was then grouped in with the developers. I reached out to Connor 3D, actually, because I was in a Squid Game RB Battles challenge with him, and he was talking in it, and then I realized, man, he actually doesn't mind sharing his voice, so I reached out to him, and he actually said he was interested. And then I reached out to Creecraft, I DM'd him, and he also said he was interested, and all those people were interested, and I said, okay, I will reach out to you again with the interview questions in the coming weeks. So at that time, I actually had a bunch of people that I reached out to asking to be interviewed, but I didn't have the questions ready yet. I just had to have in mind who I was interviewing. So then I put together some questions. I took like a week or 2 to think of some questions. That's when I started to have to think about where I wanted the video to go, and I kind of just, I don't know, I started slowly building over time a bunch of question ideas. I made sure to take a good amount of time thinking about what questions to ask, because I knew that would be pretty important to how the video would be structured later on. And ultimately, I think I was pretty happy with what I came up with. It gave a lot of opportunities for them to give good, useful information that I could utilize in the video. So if you're curious what those questions were and stuff, I'll put a couple of screenshots on screen of the DMs I sent, but also, on top of that, on my second channel, Extobyte, I released the full, complete interviews of the people who appeared in the video, and you can see what questions they were answering in that. So if you're interested and want to know more about that, then go check out that video. because it's pretty interesting stuff. There's a lot I had to cut out. But yeah, that 2-month process, it took a bit. I'm not gonna lie, it did take a bit because there was a lot of people who were busy with stuff. A lot of people had to work around their schedules, right? I had to be patient because I knew these were very important, but they were also very, very busy. And of course, I understood that, and I said, take as much time as you need. I didn't want to lose their interest, right? So I let that time go on. I sent out a lot of reminders, and over time, a lot of stuff happened, right? That's mostly what took the most time during those 2 months, was waiting for interviews and having to compromise with people, a bunch of stuff, right? And also I was pretty busy in real life, so there wasn't much progress on the video itself. It was mostly that. But during that time, I did think to myself, I started jumping into the egg hunt game a little bit, started, forming some ideas of what I wanted to do. Things started slowly, coming to light, but for the most part, it was interview filled. But ultimately, I could sit here all day talking about the ins and outs of specifically day by day what happened, but it was a pretty eventful time in terms of interviews. And I'll just list off all the people that come to mind that I asked and were interested in being interviewed. And that was Unite, Bill Thomas, Sean, B Slick, Insanely Luke, Connor 3D, Creekcraft, and then Laughability, Temperance, Jesse TC, and Dieter Plays. So obviously, people like Connor 3D and B Slick and Insanely Luke and Bill Thomas didn't work out because they were busy, completely understandable, and time went on, and I just unfortunately weren't able to get them involved in the video. But there was a moment where like a bunch of the YouTubers dropped out, where I had the 3 developers I needed, but I only had 1 YouTuber, and that was Creekcraft. So at that point, I was like towards the end of that 2-month period, and I was ready to start getting started on the video script and stuff. And I just was like, okay, I need 3 more YouTubers, or at least I needed 2 more to match the 3 developers. But ultimately, I ended up with 3 more because I reached out to a bunch of friends, and thankfully, Laughability, Temperance, and Jesse came to save the day last minute, and they were involved in the video, and they were super willing to do it, and I really, really appreciated that. And they gave me a lot of great stuff to work with, so thank you to you guys. They're not watching this video, but they're awesome. They mean a lot to me. Thank you so much. And then towards the end of this 2-month period, transitioning into the next 2 months of writing and developing ideas, I did something interesting. I do this a lot with some other videos, but I made the entire intro sequence, right? As soon as I had all the interviews done, well, actually, going even further back, in February, I posted a teaser on Twitter with a little pan shot with papers, and then the book I made of the Great Yoktales with some of the interview clips playing in the background that I have gathered, and that was at the end of February. And that's once I had all the interviews done, and I was kind of leaving people in the dark for a bit. I wanted to post a bit of an update, so that's why I posted that on Twitter, and that's that's where I was at in the video's history. And I kind of had the idea by then that I wanted to make the video's aesthetic be paper, because I realized how important the library is to the story with the encyclopedia and stuff, and paper, books, and crafty, that whole aesthetic I think fit perfectly with the egg hunt. So I knew by then that's what I wanted the video to kind of look like visually. But at that time, I had that book made, I had all the interviews done, so I just made a quick teaser with what I had available, right? But nothing else was ready, nothing else was done. And then in March, again, now transitioning into that 2-month period, that next 2 months of writing, I then made a second teaser where it was the entire intro sequence. And this intro sequence involved the library and the book and stuff like that. I'll talk about that more specifically once we start segmenting, the video by, each section. I'll talk about the entire intro sequence in more detail. But I made that pretty early on, before the video was even written, because I already had an idea of how I wanted it to start, and I didn't really know where I wanted the video to go, so I kind of made the intro to kind of start giving me ideas and just be able to easily branch off of that, and I just let the video flow naturally by itself. I had no idea what the rest of the video was going to be when making the intro. The intro is what made the rest of the video possible, right? I just branched it off of that. Sometimes when I get stuck creatively, I just make stuff, and then I just let myself go wild with how I want to go from there. And that's what I did with this. And that's, you know, the interviews, I kind of did the same thing, like with writing and stuff. I let the interviews be the basis of what I would branch off of it in terms of the script and all that stuff. I have my strategies, all right? I've been doing this for a bit. I have my strategies of how to get stuff done. But yeah, then after that, there was a bunch of stuff that went down. I mean, not only the Creator Awards, but then there was, of course, the Hunt Mega Edition happened, and then the Mega Final, and that, like, those took up a lot of time because I was very invested in that. Pig 64 happened during this time. There was a bunch of other small events that happened too. It was just, there was a lot that happened, right? And all of these were influential to the video itself in some way, shape, or form. I'll get into that hopefully later as well, but there was a lot that went down, and I just kind of, I think the reason I just took so long in this video is because obviously, as you saw with the ending, the whole ending monologue and stuff is ultimately what I was building towards throughout the video's production. And originally, that entire ending with talking about the future of events and stuff wasn't there originally. That wasn't. Originally, it was going to end when I closed the door, because I think a lot of you may notice too, that kind of looked like a natural ending point as well. But it did feel kind of incomplete because that was kind of the emotional ending that I was going for. And those you know, the first 2 months, the 2 months after that, that period between the first 2 months and then the actual video's production months, that period was spent kind of, you know, of course, again, being busy, but really thinking about how I wanted the video to be message-wise, and like that was spent making the intro and then writing a bit of the in-between, but then also mostly, and then the musical number was done during then as well. I will talk about that later. And then also the entire ending monologue of the script was written during that time, right? And I spent a lot of time refining that. There was so many rewrites I did, so many things that I changed of how I said and how I portrayed my, you know, feelings there. And I'm glad I spent a lot of time on that because it was a very complex thing to talk about. But then the entire monologue after that wasn't written until way later on, actually, after the hatch. So I'll talk about that later as well. But yeah, a very interesting process. But then the last 2.5 months after that, pretty much May, June, July, that was spent working on the video. That was spent actually writing everything in between, the ins and outs, and then filming and editing, right? That's what was done during that time. So I'll get into that when segmenting each part. But for the most part, that's the basis you need to know. That was a bit of pre-production, and that will probably explain now what's to come with each individual part. So now I'm going to break down the video segment by segment, talk about the ins and outs of each segment, and we'll see what happens. You know, I'll give as much info as possible. So here we go. Hopefully this isn't too messy. Alright, Chapter 1, Into the Book. So this entire intro sequence was, of course, again, done pretty much before anything else was done. This was, again, made right after I had all the interviews done, and I kind of wanted to get going on the video and have an idea of what I want the rest of the video to be. So I put together this intro sequence over the course of a week, pretty much, and then after it was finished, I posted it on Twitter as a first look kind of teaser to get people excited for the video. Again, at this point, I also had no idea it was going to turn into an 1.5 hour long video, but yeah, that happened. That really happened. And I also, at that time, thought the video would be done in time for April. So I was kind of crazy, right? Anyways, it takes place in a library, and of course, the whole concept is me being sucked into the book, and then the entire rest of the video takes place in the kind of like me involved and engulfed into the story of this egg hunt, and me being lost in kind of like my own adventure. That's kind of like the premise for what it sets up the video to be like. So the library is actually, I talked about this in the director's commentary, I'm pretty sure. I actually don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I did. The library is based off of my school's library, like straight up. It is based off of my school's library, which is really funny because originally I was actually going to film it in real life in the library. I spent, this was again during March, so I was in school and I spent a lot of school days like during lunchtime, kind of going to the library and plotting out in my head how I wanted the sequence to go, because I knew I wanted to start getting creative with like some camera angles and some cool shots. I was going to do a locked off shot where I kind of get flipped on my stomach and get dragged into the book. There's a lot of fun ideas I had, but ultimately I realized it was kind of difficult because there was always something going on in the library, and I asked some teachers and stuff to like if I could use the library, and they said it would be kind of hard. I don't know, I wasn't getting good vibes from that, and I ultimately didn't really go through with it because I didn't think it was going to work out well. And second off, it's a Roblox video, so I kind of realized the importance of having Roblox videos be entirely based around Roblox for the most part, so that people, still be engaged, because you can't deviate too far off from Roblox itself, right? I do that sometimes with videos, and that kind of works out either for the better, but mostly for the worst, and in the end, it is a Roblox video, and you want to keep it Roblox focused. So I realized, like, okay, let's mix these two ideas, and let's just make the library in Roblox. And I didn't know what to do, right? I don't know how to make libraries and stuff, so I realized maybe it's best if I could just ask someone to build it. And that's when I reached out to Silver Platinums, who I previously worked with on my news account video. He made the entire city and news station for that video, and it was awesome. He did a great job. So I realized, okay, he needs to come back. He needs to do something else for one of my videos because he's very talented. So I reached out to him. I sent him reference images of my school's library, and I'm like, hey, can you do something like this, but make the outside this? Like, I gave some notes and stuff of how I wanted it to look, and it's like, he did it. He just did it. I mean, in like 2 days. It's crazy. Definitely hire Silver Platinums if you need some building work done for your videos, because he's incredibly talented. Like, holy cow. So I did that, and then to populate the shot a little bit with some people in the background, I added some of you guys. I asked for your, usernames. I didn't add all of you because some of you have very distracting avatars. Very distracting. But for the most part, I added a good amount of you guys in the background, and I also added Silver himself in there as well. But yeah, then I just kind of had fun with it and did the entire intro sequence. I picked out that outfit because I try to keep things interesting, and I used the green hoodie to kind of pay an homage to my signature orange. Did I say green hoodie? Wait. I picked the orange hoodie as an homage to my orange character, kind of my color scheme, and then like the cool, I don't know, coat on the outside too. I threw that together. I don't know, it looked nice. And little did I know how important that would be for the rest of the video. So yeah, then after that, it follows into me getting sucked into the book. And originally, for the longest time, the farthest I've had done with that shot was the very end shot, like pretty much the entire teaser sequence I posted on Twitter, but it ended exactly at the last point where you see the book on the ground and everyone around it. That little bit after that of me being paper and stuff, and then going into the Great Yoktales, that wasn't done until way, way later. But that little sequence afterwards of me being paper, that was a kind of fun look that it took me a little bit to figure out, but it's something that I'm glad I did because I ended up utilizing it a lot throughout the rest of the video. But it's pretty much me, like, I lowered the frame rate using a couple techniques because Final Cut Pro is very counterintuitive, and I used I think it was like the multiplied blend mode, and I put myself on top of a paper cutout of me, which was used with the alpha blend mode, which kind of made a silhouette of me on top of me. It's interesting. There was a whole process to that, but I tweaked around with the looks and stuff visually, and I ended up really liking it. I liked it a lot. I had a lot of fun with it, and it was just me, like, I don't know. This was pretty much applied to the rest of the video, but I always said if I had a crazy idea, I just went for it, right? Because I knew, why not? This was just to have fun, go crazy, and I'm really glad I went crazy with it, because it turned out really awesome visually. And then the song I used was from Severance Season 2, because during this 6.5 month period of me making the video, of course, back in February, I think it was February, I don't know, I can't remember exactly, but back then is when Severance Season 2 came out, and I was in love with it. I love Severance so much. one of my favorite shows of all time. That's besides the point, but I used a song that was used in that show, and I used it as the intro sequence. And that's, I think, officially when I decided that I want the entire video to be copyrighted, because there's a whole discussion about that, and I talked about it in my director's commentary track, but pretty much put simply, I had a bunch of, I had an entire list of like songs I've wanted to use for the longest time in one of my videos, and all of them are obviously copyrighted. So I thought this was the perfect opportunity to just go crazy, do a one-off video that wouldn't be monetized, and put as much copyrighted songs that I've been wanting to use for the longest time all in one video. And I did, and little did I know it turned into one of my biggest videos of all time, but whatever. It happens. Whatever. I'm not going to get into that again, but, that was Eminence Front by The Who. That was an awesome intro song. Loved it. Alright, and then we got into the Great Yoktales, and from here on out, with a few exceptions, all of the sequences throughout the video was filmed, edited, and for the most part, written during that last 2.5 month grind period. There was a lot going on during that time. So this was a moment of me, going into the Great Yoktales itself, kind of doing a recap of old moments in Roblox history, the history of egg hunts itself, and introducing all of the interviewees in a kind of cool, grand reveal type of way. And this was called the Great Yoktales. That was what the segment was called. And I really wanted to do this because I knew I needed a good preamble to what the video would be, to set up kind of like how much of a history there is to all of this. I really don't know what else to say about it, except that it was pretty much the only time in the video where it was mostly comprised of me using kind of decals on screen rather than real physical properties, because I tried to avoid using just plastering images on screen for the most part throughout the video. But I'm glad I did it early on in the video, because it kind of hooks people in as it being a normal Roblox video, but then slowly changes into what my videos are known for, and making some crazy in real life elements. But yeah, I had fun with this. As you may have noticed, there's the entire video has a unique style, and I did try and experiment a lot with it, because this was the first full feature-length documentary that I've made that I've used my new camera. Let me see if I can get it real quick. Okay, yeah, this is the first documentary that I did, because I did the Five Nights at Freddy's video with this, but this is the first time I used the camera for a project of this scale, and that is my new Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K camera. This thing is cinema grade quality, so voice crack. This is cinema grade quality, so it's not full frame, if you guys know what that means, but it is still micro four thirds, but it's a nice step up from the Lumix, which I'm actually recording this on, and I saved up for this because I knew it's something I've always wanted. But it has a lot of great features that I experimented a lot with throughout this video, so it was also a big learning process for me with this new camera. But yeah, I really did love this. I didn't use this lens, I used the lens that I'm recording with right now, but it was really fun. It was really, really fun to use. And because of that, though, this has a sort of grain to it. I don't know, I'm not great with cameras, so I don't really know exactly if that's something that could have been avoided. But for the most part, the Blackmagic gave an interesting grain to all of the shots that I filmed. So to kind of compromise for that, because to have my green screen self have a large amount of grain put onto and over top of an image of an in-game recording of Roblox, which has no grain, it would look kind of weird. So the entirety of I don't know if you guys noticed this, but the entirety of the documentary has a bit of film grain applied to it. I think it's 15% film grain. And on top of that, I added a LUT, which is actually, what does that stand for? A lookup table, which is it's a fancy version of a filter, but it does it on a more database level. I don't know, it's so confusing, but I used a bunch of LUTs, and each different world has its own unique LUT that I applied to it that I thought matched with the aesthetic of the world, because again, having me with a different, lighting and different colors set on top of an in-game recording of Roblox, which has different colors, was a little bit confusing, and it didn't look exactly natural. So to compromise for that, I had the grain, I had the LUT, and then I added a bit of like some flares and streaks to it. I used a lot of elements that I've never used before with my green screen looks to try and make it look as realistic as possible. And for the most part, I'm very happy with how it turned out. But yeah, this was just me having fun with it. None of this was pretty much planned beforehand. I just pretty much went crazy with it and filled in the gaps. I just started using as much different paper elements as possible, like, you know, the popsicle sticks of the Extravaganza and Telemon, and then of course the pop-up book, which actually took a little bit to make. I used this book for that. This was actually a book that I had called Creativity Inc., which was a biography of the guy who made Pixar, the guy who founded Pixar. I forgot his name. Ed Catmull. And it's a very good book, actually. It talks about like creativity and stuff like that, and how to create a workplace environment that kind of encourages creativity. But anyways, I use this book because it's red, and I feel like that kind of fit the vibes of it, and I kind of covered the sides of it with red tape. Thankfully, the front didn't have any decorations. There was kind of a paper cover over it. And then I printed this out, pasted it on top of it, and this was the book that I was sucked into, but then I also used it for the paper element, and I'm trying to see if there's any residue of it left over, but no. Okay, so the pop-up book, there's some pages that were ripped out because of it, but I'm not going to use this book again, so I mean, whatever. I put it to good use, I think. But yeah, that little flip-up element was kind of fun to make. But yeah, it's just, you know, this was like a big craft project, it felt like, right? I kept trying to use new, innovative ways to be creative with how I presented this information, and I don't know, just keep things as interesting as possible on screen. Alright, but then after that, it leads into the next chapter, which is where things start to get interesting and the story starts to get laid out. So once I have people hooked in, then I start introducing the plot that I had in mind for this video. And this is when I started to realize, as I was writing and as I was filming, that this video was going to take a while, and this video was going to be long. Because if you may have noticed, I didn't start actually going through and explaining the entire story and actually playing the event again until 10 minutes into the video, right? And again, I was okay with that. I let things happen naturally. I knew this was a one-off video, so I didn't have to worry about any analytics or keeping it interesting. No, I made it feel like a movie because I let things breathe naturally, right? I let scenes drag out for a little long, but not too long, right? I still made sure to be careful of that, but that's why I kind of had a movie-esque feel to it. But yeah, this was fun. Incorporating the whole black and white 4:3 aspect ratio feel into the video was really nice. I talk about the specifics of why, story-wise, I did that in the director's commentary track, so I won't get into that here. But, you know, from a filmmaking standard, it's always so fun to experiment with new, you know, not new, because this is all old school forms of storytelling, but kind of this, like, I don't know, incorporating old cinema into a modern piece is always a fun vibe. And the black and white aesthetic mixed with the aspect ratio, I think it made for a really cool, unique look to the video to contrast the kind of vibrant, colorful world that is the Egg Hunt game itself with the, you know, the dark reality behind the emotions of it all. And again, it incorporated more Severance soundtrack, which is really fun. A lot of people notice that, but yeah, I love the Severance soundtrack. It's so good. And then later on, once I'm like started again and I start getting into the details of it, I introduce the kind of space realm with the bacon playing the piano. I was talking to Roblox dude, and funnily enough, it looks a lot like his bacon hair character that wears a tuxedo and a red tie. That is a part of his like music. Dude, that was not intentional whatsoever, but we declared it that is canon. All right, that is canon. They are now the same person canonically. All right, there's a lore there, so go crazy. Anyways, I thought that was really fun. At this part in this moment in production, I was originally going to have every single NPC that appeared in the video. I was thinking of having them all animated, so that's why the bacon hair is animated, and that's also why later on the musical number segment with Average is animated as well, like the Roblox characters animated, because at that time, that was done way before anything else was done. At that time, I thought everything was going to be animated, but as I started getting into things, I slowly realized that was a bad idea because 1, that would take forever, and 2, it wouldn't match the vibes of Egg Hunt 2018 because all the NPCs aren't animated in the actual game. They are just Roblox characters with idle animation. So I thought to match the vibe of that, I would give the NPCs that same treatment. So that's kind of why the rest isn't animated, but I think it worked out pretty well. And then, of course, that's where we have Jordan as Booker. Booker is a character that I knew I needed to, bring back in the video. And I think after this and the musical number, because that was done way early on in the process, I'll get into it. But because of that, I realized that it would be fun to have a concept where not only each world has its own outfit and own look, but also has its own unique NPC that would follow me around. And that's an idea that I thought of right before I started making each individual world, because everything about the video was made all over the place, but for the most part, except Hardboiled City with the musical number, but for the most part, every single world was made in, written and filmed and edited consecutively right after one another all the way towards the end of the production process. And that's why it kind of has the most, unique look out of everything, and that's where everything is kind of, I had everything figured out, is because that was pretty much the last things that I did, which was filling in the gaps of the video. But yeah, Jordan as Booker, really fun. Jordan has been a part of the channel for a long time. He was perfect as Booker because not only I think his voice really fits the part, but also he's been wanting to be a part of my videos again for a while now, and he has been a huge part of this channel's history. Believe it or not, there's so many moments throughout this channel that he has actually been a part of that you may not know about, but he is definitely the longest running member because I've known him the longest. So again, with this entire video and the themes of nostalgia and stuff, I thought it was only fitting that a nostalgic person from my past was incorporated in this video. So I thought that was pretty fun. Alright, and then came Wonderland Grove. Alright, so Wonderland Grove was really fun to make. This was the first thing that I obviously went before any other world was made, because again, I filmed and edited and written and shot everything involving each individual world consecutively. So this was the first before anything, and it was painful, not gonna lie, because Wonderland Grove is the beginning of it all, so it kind of had to explain how each world was expected to run and, set the basis for everything. So naturally, it was one of the longest segments, but also it was just one of the most tedious to film. Aiden's Death Pit, though, great voice actor, great guy. He did the entire wacky voice voluntarily. I didn't tell him to do that. I said you could just use your normal voice, don't worry about going too crazy with it, but he did, and I had to go for it. I had to include that voice he did because, man, it is good, and it is so funny.
Alright, I'm just gonna go fucking nuts with this. We'll see if you like it.
And then, the whole, again, I talk about this in director's commentary, so I won't talk about, the specific themes and messages behind all this, but he and I kind of go on this journey, collecting all the developers, and that's kind of like a message about how this event brings people together, all that stuff. But the specifics of it, his avatar I had to buy so that I could actually wear in-game, and that was kind of expensive because his hat, the Mad Hatter hat, is very expensive, so that was fun. But the outfit I wore was also kind of fun. It was pretty easy to green screen because it covered my hair. I'm sure you guys know this, but if you don't, hair is the most annoying part to green screen correctly. It is always clipping, always causing problems. So that's why I try to wear a lot of hats whenever I could throughout the video, because it just made it easier on me to green screen and make it look nice. And then, of course, that little segment of me dancing to One Way or Another was very last minute. I incorporated, again, that paper look that we used at the beginning of the video and all that. It was pretty fun. And yeah, I really don't know what else to say about it, except, Wonderland Grove, the interview segment at the end, right? I kind of I had the idea of what I wanted to do written out first, and then I applied what interviews to it after, because I did have an idea, like I watched all the interviews through, and I did have an idea of some key points to cover of all the individual, topics that all the interviews had in common, and they all talked about that they had in common. And I applied that to the video where I had each world talk about a different one of those key points of what made the event great. And I just, at the end, I didn't know what interviews I was going to include. I just included which ones hit the points the best and which one fit the pacing of the video the best, and then just threw them in there, right? This entire video was just a bunch of last-minute ideas, and a lot of it was done in editing for the most part. Not a lot was done in writing for these individual world segments, that's for sure. Very spontaneous production. This was also, another fun fact, this was also a part where I found out the beauty of Blockstrap. If you don't know, Blockstrap is like a, I actually don't know what you can consider it. It's not an exploit, that's for sure, but it's like a, I don't know the logistics of it. I'm not smart with this stuff, but it's something that allows you to do a lot of fun mods to your Roblox, client. And one of the key things that I used it for, and used a lot of it with, was it can remove GUIs on screen, and it could also remove players' usernames. And I needed that because my character, I was using as the NPCs, kept showing Pixelpug on top of it, and it was impossible to avoid. And I was really stressed out. I was really stressed out for a while there, because I thought that I wasn't going to be able to make this work, because it kept showing my username. But thankfully, I found Blockstrap. I was able to remove usernames, and it was just so much easier to film scenes in Roblox with then, because I could avoid the struggle of having GUIs be in the way of the background and having to super zoom in to avoid those GUIs, but also I didn't have to worry about the usernames appearing overhead. It was nice. It was so nice, and I actually use Blockstrap to this day, so shout out Blockstrap for saving the video. Another fun fact is, this is something I do for all of my videos, but I try to use old props a lot, and just have every video I have a bunch of props that I need, and most of the time I have to buy new ones, but there's a lot that I save and leave over because I know that in the future I may utilize them in some way, and that's where the crowbar came into play, because thankfully, this is something I had from an old video that actually was never made. If you guys remember the If It Was a Movie series I did for 2 videos and then completely stopped them, but that's when I turned games into like fake movie trailers, and it was really fun, just a fun side video to make. That was before I really knew my niche, but I was going to do a jailbreak one, and for that I bought like an entire crowbar prop because I had like ideas for like, robbing scenes and stuff. But of course that was never made, and I just kind of had that left over, and thankfully it was brought back for this video because there was a part where Insanely Luke needed the crowbar to free him, and I thought it would be a fun gimmick to like have that in real life, but then that eventually evolved into me actually using it in just the one way or another dancing scenes, and me like playing the guitar on it, because then I thought it'd be fun to like have me step out of that kind of zone and frenzy to use it on the Insanely Luke breaking scene. Like it all came about naturally and just built off of one another. But yeah, that's the beauty of just saving old props from old videos, because you never know when you could need them. But yeah, after all that, then Wonderland Grove was done, and we're off to Easterbury Canals. Originally, Easterbury Canals was going to be a lot more boring than it actually was. It was originally just going to be normal scenes of me and Rosalie going around town and like cutting in between, interviews during that little montage sequence. But I realized it was a little redundant, and it was also, I was filming this really late at night, one night I remember clearly, and I thought like last minute, I was like, okay, to make this easier on me, I'm just gonna film everything I need tonight, and like I'll edit it the next morning. And I wasn't about to sit there and like edit a bunch of scenes of me like, going around town with Rosalie and having to move around. And then there was also this whole process of where I had to set up my mic to film my voice and stuff so I could use it in post. So what I did is I just last minute decided late at night, I was like, okay, let me just turn all these scenes into like kind of like PNG cutouts of me and Rosalie and incorporate an entirely new aesthetic to keep the crafty aesthetic going. of us being cardboard cutouts. And I thought that would be a really fun idea to give a unique flair to this segment. And I think it worked because like cardboard added, I think, and it fit in perfectly to the entire color palette and aesthetic of Easterbury Canals, but also just made it easier on me that night because I could just film me going like, and you know, like I'm sure I'll show clips of it on screen right now, but it was very, very easy to film comparatively because then I could just film the voiceovers the next morning and just get that over with. But yeah, again, another very last minute decision that just, I'm glad I did. And then yeah, with that last minute decision came about the idea of me of showing us on a map going through the town and stuff, because of course the theme of this world being like the beauty of one world events and, you know, one game events during dev hunts. So I thought it'd be fun to visually showcase the beauty of like being able to go across the map and travel through all these different places to get all the eggs. And that idea again came about during that same night of when I wanted to make it cardboard. So what I did is I reached out to Bells for Brains, literally just said, hey, if you are fully able, it is totally okay if you can't, but if you're able, I would love to incorporate this idea into my film, and I just need some help with the decals because I can't draw it myself, and I thought it'd be really cool. And thankfully he was doing last minute commission work and he was able to fit me in, and he got it done the next day, and I incorporated that into the video because again at the time I was kind of in a rush. This was all the last stuff that I did in the video's production, so I was trying to like every second counted because I needed to get this video done just ASAP. I was just completely done with it, and thankfully he worked around my schedule, and of course I paid him well because dude is talented. And then of course gotta shout out the GOAT Aphex. I talked about this in director's commentary, but she was someone who wanted to be incorporated in my videos for a while now. She was a big fan of, you know, the way I did my videos, and she also is a fan of doing like voice actress work. So this was the perfect opportunity to, you know, include her. And mad shout out props to her because did a great job. She fit the character very, very well. And then that whole ending sequence of the ice cream melting and stuff, that was really fun. I thought of that very last minute too, because that whole I knew I wanted like a fun climactic moment during each individual sequence, like each individual chapter, to keep things, you know, exciting. And that was the last minute idea I had. I literally just went upstairs, got ice cream, and then just used it for that sequence. And it was fun that I was able to incorporate like the bandana and like kind of take that off and wrap it around the ice cream. That was fun. But yeah, that entire thing was just having fun with it, trying to make the world feel more immersive. It also added to the theme of like, I have to like urgently travel from one end of the map to the other, right? Like it's just, it all fit in very, very well. The pieces aligned very naturally to this video. Like I'm very lucky how a lot of things turned out because, trust me, I wasn't genius enough to predict all of this beforehand, that's for sure. Hold on, I'm eating, hold on, I gotta figure it out, hold on. Guys, there's a lot that happened during this production, I'm not gonna lie. We'll get into it later. Anyways, this will be without it for the rest of the video, so don't get alarmed by that. Anyways, yeah, Easterbury Canals was really fun. It was really, really fun to make because originally I really did think it was going to be boring, but like in the end, it does have a lot of personality, and this is a really beautiful looking world because like the town and like the golden hour sunset, it's awesome. It's really awesome, and in the end, I'm happy with how it, you know, resulted. I was very unsure going in, but I'm happy. I talked about this in the director's commentary, but the biggest problem I had during this was the glasses, because the glasses I wear in the video caused so many reflections, and I have them right here, and you can see, look how many reflections there are, right? You can see both monitors I'm recording with, like when I wear them, so you can only imagine how annoying it was to try and avoid the glasses from completely whiting out due to the lights that were on me that I need for the green screen. And it was bad. It was really bad. That was the most tedious thing to film. That's also another reason why I switched to the cardboard, because it made it easier for me to avoid the lights, because I could position my glasses perfectly so that I could see, you know, what I needed to, you know, I could see exactly. It made it easier because I could, like, ahead of time, like, actually, like, position myself perfectly where the glasses avoided the reflection, and then freeze that frame so that I could use it in post. Like, it was just, it made it much easier, right? It was so hard, man. But ultimately, with that, we are off to Hard-Boiled City. The page flip effect is kind of fun. I realized it while watching here, but how I did these page flip effects was I had the camera looking, like, the camera was positioned down, looking up at me, and I had the book held in front of it. And the pages I would flip, I would hold the book in front of the camera, flip the page so that it would do a complete wipe, and I would film it with one costume, go back, and then film it with the next costume, and then just merge it in post. And how I did it in post wasn't any fancy editing. I just did the one frame where the page was right down the center. That one frame was just an amalgamation of both scenes merged together so that it was like a natural flip into the next one, and it looked very clean because of it. I loved how it turned out. It was really nice. And then of course the intro with Laughability doing the piano segment. Oh, it's so good. The natural fade in, so good. Again, I talked about that in director's commentary, but I love that so much. And then yeah, this one was just a really fun chapter. It was really fun because there was 3 big moments during it that kind of made it stand out amongst the rest and pretty much made it the best segment of the video. I mean, just factually, because I mean, you can't deny there's just so many great moments during this chapter that the rest just don't have, just because of how things are. I mean, Hard-Boiled City is a very packed world because of course it has the musical number, it has the Ready Player One integration talk, and then it has the entire Festival of Eggs sequence. So I'm going to ignore the musical number for now. I'm going to talk about Hard-Boiled City in its entirety, and then I'm just going to have a whole chapter dedicated to talking about the musical number, alright? Because I know a lot of you are interested, and there is a lot to cover with that, so we'll get into it. But let's just talk about Hard-Boiled City first. So Hard-Boiled City was fun to film. It had a really fun costume lined up for it, of course, just to add to the natural, noir detective theme of it all. But one of the most difficult parts about this was obviously the rain, because the rain is always there in-game. There is no way to avoid it. I couldn't remove it all and then put me in there and then add the rain over top and post. No, it's just in there. So I had to play around with a lot of settings to make it look right, because of course when you put me on top of the image, the rain just will go behind me. So I had to add more rain on top of the image. And for the most part, I think it turned out pretty good. I mean, it was the best I could do because there's only so much you could work with, but I just kept reminding myself, like, it's a YouTube video, don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. But I still am very happy with how it turned out. Just a lot of stuff I had to adjust and mess with in post, that's for sure. Okay, then there was the musical number, we'll come back to that, don't worry. And then yeah, our Ready Player One segment, that was really fun to make. There was just a lot of good memories from that. I love Ready Player One. I knew I had to talk about it in this video because it was a big part of this, this event's success. That whole pixelated thing of me going into the world pixelated and stuff. Originally, I was going to have then subsequently during the entire sequence, everything shown on screen be pixelated and like kind of, staticky. That didn't work out because obviously it just kind of looked kind of too much and it was a little messy. So I steered away from that. But for the most part, pretty happy with how that turned out. A lot of this, I don't know how much to say about it because that's just pretty much how the entire video is for the most part. And then Festival of Eggs. This was one of the moments where I really let Dieter talk a lot because he gave a lot of great information about the QA testing of it all, and I knew I wanted to do a little shout out for QA testers because they were a big deal around this time and still they still are very much important to the development process. So Dieter had a lot to say about that. I just let him talk a lot throughout the segment, and then of course I kind of segued that into talking about how great of a team 15 truly was, because Festival of Eggs was it was a great central point for the discussion of this event. It just kind of encapsulated what this entire event meant to a lot of people, and yeah, it was really fun. A lot of this wasn't, I just let a lot of graphics shown on screen for this one. I just really didn't know what else to do for it, but yeah, just a nice, natural, interview-heavy segment. And that's pretty much Hard-Boiled City. I don't know what else to say about it. I will say I am thinking about this now because this sequence, this entire chapter is filled a lot with it, but all of the decals and graphics on screen of the drawings and stuff of, the intros with the titles of each world, and then of course the egg account, those are all drawn by me. They were hand drawn by me. I don't know if I have it on me right now. I don't. Okay, I had a little stylus that I used for all of them, but I drew them on my phone on using, I used Flip a Clip, which I never used before, but turned out awesome. Like, yeah, great service. But yeah, it was just really fun. I just kind of like drew them out because I don't know, I couldn't find anything online that kind of matched the style I was going for. So to just give it that extra look, go the extra mile, all the drawn elements that you see on screen are all done by me. I drew on top of a green screen, then did a bunch of adjustments in post with shadows and different blend modes just to make it pop. But that was fun. That was really fun. It took a while, but it was worth it. It definitely was worth it. But after all that, I guess we can get into the musical number. So let's talk about this number, because boy oh boy. Okay, so this musical number, the audio for it was done back in April, and then the actual physical recording of everything was done in May. So this entire musical number sequence was done way before I started any of the worlds and all of the filming for this video way ahead of time. The only thing that was done at that time was the intro sequence, and then of course the ending monologue was written. But other than that, nothing else was done. I just had the interviews, that's it. So this was very early on in the process, and you can tell because if you look at me right before I go into the jazz club, you can notice I have a lot more hair than when I go into it. I just look a lot more cleaned up when I'm in it, because of obviously it was filmed at a later time, and to keep things, you know, consistent continuity wise, I didn't cut my hair for a long time. I had to keep it long, so I was very committed to this. So yeah, let's talk about this. I originally came up with the idea because at that time I realized, like, I had that idea of like, okay, this is going to be a copyrighted video, one-off thing, let's just go crazy with it. And I realized it was also my opportunity to do a musical number, because for the most part I didn't know anybody who composed music, and I definitely can't compose music myself, so I knew I had to use a pre-existing song, and with that, of course, came copyright issues. So that's why I never really have done it in the past, even though I've wanted to multiple times. We actually tried making an entire musical number with the first ARG I did with lessons in internet safety. We had an entire musical number recorded with the same person, with Average, that was going to be in the ARG, but never ended up being in it because it's hard. It's really difficult, and we ended up scrapping it. But I'm glad we were able to come back and do it in this video because, man, we've been wanting to do it for a while. So how we got the idea is I'm a part of my high school's tech crew for our drama club. We do a musical and play every year, and our musical is usually a big production that takes place over the course of it takes place over the course of months, but it is shown over the course of 4 days. Like, there's 4 showings in April. And while we were working on this musical, right, it was just a long process of being involved in the production. This is also what set back the video a lot during this time, obviously, of, you know, I was very busy with this. But during this, of course, the musical we were working on was a musical called Anastasia, which is based off of the old film, the old animated film. And this was where I came across, of course, the song that was used in the musical called Land of Yesterday, and it was my standout favorite song and musical number from the entire thing. And every time we would, you know, go through it and have it performed on stage, I fell in love with it. So what I did during the last 2 weeks of the musical's production, which is usually the most involved, because that, you know, if anybody has been a part of a musical production, you may know that there is the last 2 weeks before the showings, there is Tech Week and then there's Heck Week. And Tech Week and Heck Week involves you staying after school all throughout the night, right? And then you go to bed, you wake up the next morning, go to school, and then the entirety of after school until bed is, again, working on the musical. So it's just 2 weeks of nonstop grinding and working on the production to make sure it's perfect right before showing. And during that time, I suddenly, it hit me, came up with the idea, like, okay, let's parody Land of Yesterday, and let's do it right. Let's make an entire thing for the Egg Hunt documentary, because it'd be a really fun standout thing for the video, and it was the perfect song for it because it fit perfectly in with Hardboiled City. It was the speakeasy type of, you know, old noir city aesthetic. It was perfect, absolutely perfect. So what we did is we took the lyrics of the song. I got Average on board, and McKenna also helped with the writing as well. And during our lunch periods, during the school day, we had 50-minute lunch periods. For a solid 3 days, we would meet up and just brainstorm what we could rewrite the script to be, incorporating a bunch of egg puns, incorporating lore of the Egg Hunt series, just making it a whole, the whole kind of center point of the video wrapped up into one little song. Of course, basing it in Hardboiled City. There was a lot of funny ideas we had thrown around. There was a lot of bad ones too that just were very dumb, but it was a fun process. We had to keep, of course, a lot of the original cadence of the original. We left a lot of the original lines in there as well, because just, of course, the musical, like the instrumentals itself is heavily based around the song, so we had to keep it very close to the original as much as possible. So that's why there's a lot of, like, the syllables of these lines are the same. If you listen to the original number, Land of Yesterday, and listen to the one we did, it's very similar, because we just had to keep it really similar, because if we deviated too far from it, it just wouldn't sound natural with the instrumentals. So after doing all that, Average was in the musical itself. She was an actress in it. She wasn't one of the leads. She was a part of the background ensemble. So what we did is, during one of the show days where we were working on something, we found some free time to... I brought this mic right here, I brought to school. It was very, very weird to carry around in school. It was kind of funny, but anyways, I brought it to school, and we kind of went into a kind of back alley, like, staircase that our school had, and I let her in there with my laptop and with this mic, and I closed the door, and I gave her headphones, and she listened to the instrumental with the lyrics we came up with, and just sung the entire thing all the way through. It only took her 2 takes. She did 2 takes of singing the entire thing all the way through, not segmented or anything. She sung the whole thing, and I had the recording, and it was done. The next day, I bought the instrumentals online. I applied it to the background of her vocals, did a bunch of tweaking to make it just right. It was a very tedious process that took a couple days, but then I finally had it done. And then the final week of the show came around, and I still needed the background vocals, and I just pulled a bunch of people, a bunch of my friends that were also in the musical, that were actual background singers during the show, and I had them just sing. I pulled them aside, I had them listen to Average's actual recording with the soundtrack, and then they were doing the same thing of, like, recording. It was really fun. It was a really, really fun process that I will not forget. But for the longest time, we just had the musical number done, and I kind of had to set it aside because we were very busy and we weren't able to record the visuals to accompany it until a whole month later. And then when that came around, I pulled aside Average as well as Gracie and Henry, who are 2 friends of mine. Gracie is no longer at our school. She's graduated off to college, and then Henry is a year below us. And now we took us like one afternoon. Huge shout out to Mrs. Frank, our drama director. She is in charge of the PAC, the Performing Arts Center, that we recorded this in, and she let us after school one day. We, scheduled ahead of time with her a day that it was free, and she just let us have the entire thing to ourselves, and we recorded a bunch of just fun shots, just last minute right there. We thought of it. Nothing was planned ahead of time. All of these fun visuals were done way in advance, and that was a really fun process. There's a bunch of fun bloopers, a bunch of funny moments. I can't show them just flat out because there's no audio with them, unfortunately. I don't know what happened to audio during all this recording. I guess we really didn't need it, but it's kind of a bummer because you can't hear audio behind a lot of these footage. But there was just a lot of funny moments. I got my brother to, man the spotlight up in the booth, and it was just a cool, I think it took us 4 hours, right? Yeah, there was a solid 4 hours. And I think 2 hours in, Gracie and Henry, our backup dancers, had to go. So then that's why the entire second half of the musical number is just me and Average, because I only had just me and her to work with. So We just did it, and I think it worked out pretty well, because then it just kind of showed her as the center point. And yeah, it was just a fun process, very fun. And then I think like the next day I went back and I filmed all of like the jazz club scene and stuff beforehand. Again, that's when I didn't know how the video was going to be, so I animated her character kind of like turning around and stuff. Yeah, it was so fun, and I'll never forget that process. I'm very glad I did it, because this will probably never happen again in one of my videos, because it's just such a involved thing. And I have so much respect for people like Roblox Dude, who does these musical numbers, but like he does them on such of like an awesome way, and they're all like so original, and just it's awesome. I have so much respect for that, and everyone who does that in their videos. Like, there's a bunch of creators who do musical numbers in their videos, and especially people who have that be their entire like persona online, is doing musical numbers like that. Respect, because this was hard. I mean, I've learned firsthand, this is very hard, and we didn't even make the instrumentals, right? We did everything else, but the instrumentals we didn't even do, and a lot of people have to do that part too. So again, so much respect. So yeah, I won't get too deep into it, because I know a lot of you guys ask questions about it later on in the Q&A, so I'll get into that. But that's pretty much the basis of how the musical number came to be. It was just a spontaneous decision while working on the musical, and like after seeing the original version of this Land of Yesterday played out in front of me so many times, I instantly I fell in love with the song, and I thought it was perfect to incorporate in the video. And I'm glad I did, because that's all people can talk about. An average in the background, actors and dancers killed it. Like, they killed it, man. They killed it. So, huge shout out to everyone who made that possible. I'm so happy with how it turned out. Alright, then we're off to Ruins of Wukong. I'm not gonna lie, don't have much to say about this, because this is definitely the most boring segment, and I kind of went into this knowing that I use this as an excuse to talk about a lot of points that I couldn't talk about anywhere else naturally, just like, the parkour mechanics, and a little mention to Beastlick, because as you guys know, he was originally going to be interviewed, but since he couldn't, I still wanted to leave a little homage to him in there. And then yeah, I just had the most fun moment be me being chased down by a boulder and then being run over by it. That was really fun. Of course, Motionate, had to get him involved. He's been wanting to be in my videos, for a while too. Like he's been offering, doing voice acting work, and I took up his offer and had the perfect role for him. I think that this character, this NPC I found in-game was perfect, because I talked about this in director's commentary, but all of the people who I had, all the characters that followed me throughout each world were actual NPCs in the game. They were full-on NPCs that you could actually find in the game. So that brought a lot more, it just made it a lot more realistic to how the event actually was, because these are actually people you can find in the game, and I even incorporated a little bit of their lines that you can find in-game into their actual script in the video, so that was really fun. But yeah, Ruins of Wukong I knew from the beginning was going to be the most boring sequence, because at this point, it was towards the end, it was right before the grand finale, and I knew that there wasn't much else to say, so I kind of just skipped over a lot of it, because there was, it was the same old stuff, right? And there was a big emphasis on having everything shown on screen be actually important to, progressing the story, and any useless things just weren't shown on screen. Anything that wasn't going to be relevant to the video, I just didn't show. So that's why a lot of Ruins of Wukong was skipped, because a lot of what I needed to say was already said, and Ruins of Wukong would have been much of the same. So, yeah. I will make this a good point, because I realize I didn't talk about this yet, but I will use this as a good opportunity to talk about the outfits that I wore throughout each, worlds. All of those were thrifted. Huge recommendation to anyone who wants like cheap Halloween costumes or any other type of costume. Just go to thrift stores. That's something we've learned over the past 2 years, is that thrift stores are the perfect place to get everything you need for a costume at super cheap. And all of these outfits were thrifted, all of them. I just right before I started filming all of the worlds, I went to thrift store with my mom, and I had an entire list of each world and the general idea of what I wanted the outfit to be, and I just found all of them I found. Some of them were old outfits that I had already, just repurposed, which again, that brings up the point again with like, using the same props, but all in all, it was a really fun process to, you know, bring all of these outfits to life. I really did enjoy that. That was cool. And I love the idea of the different outfits. It just made each world so much more, you know, tangible. But yeah, not much else I can say about Ruins of Wukong. Again, at this point, I was getting towards the end. I was filming all the worlds consecutively, and this was, of course, the second to last sequence. So I was ready to get going. Again, since it was thrifted clothes, I didn't mind like making it dirty and stuff after getting run over by the boulder. I used just some basic makeup to, you know, decorate my face and the clothing to make it look like I got really scratched up and beat up and stuff. And that was kind of funny. I like that moment. And then we get into the Undernest. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, I said a lot of like the messages and morals of this segment during the director's commentary. So if you're interested in all that, be sure to check that out. But from the actual filmmaking standpoint, this segment I knew was the most important, so I really let it drag out the longest, and I used a bunch of big songs that I've been wanting to use for a while, right? One of the biggest, of course, was Murph by Hans Zimmer, the one that is, of course, from Interstellar. That is a song I've been wanting to use for a long time, and I'm so glad I was finally able to on, you know, a video like this, and it was a perfect moment. So yeah, all the Undernest stuff was really fun. The hat that I wore in the Undernest was actually, I had to cut it. This is a hat I had like for years. I can like pull up some old pictures of me wearing this top hat right now on screen. You can see how long I've actually had this hat. And I've never used it in the video, well, one of my documentaries until now, because I thought it fit perfectly with the Undernest character. This was actually suggested by Motion8, so shout out to him, but I had all the outfits in mind except the Undernest, and he gave the idea of like, why don't you just dress like Amor? And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So that's why I wear purple with the tux and the top hat, because of course Amor wears a top hat with, you know, it's purple. So yeah, and then of course like just the black feathers that Amor has, just that's why I'm wearing a lot of black. If you didn't notice that, I am heavily inspiring the Undernest outfit off of Amor. But yeah, it fits so much better, but it presented an interesting and unique challenge throughout the production of the Undernest segment, because I had to avoid showing the back of my head. And whenever I did show the back of my head, I had to flip this around and have the cut in the front, so that when you're looking from the back, it looks like this. So every time you see the top hat, it's always this side. The back is always covered. There's a few moments where it slips, of course, where it was beyond my control, where I did have to like turn a little bit, so you can see a little bit of hair sticking out of the back of the top hat, which is pretty funny. But that presented a unique challenge that I had to kind of work around. But you know, I think it worked out pretty well in the end. I don't know what to say about the Joey cameo. Joey is my pug. He's my dog, if you guys didn't know. And I don't know. I just feel like I kind of had an epiphany that I'm like, wait, I'm Pixel Pug. I should probably incorporate my pug a lot more in my videos. So I don't know. I might make that a tradition, but I just had him in there. I don't know, random. It was such a last minute decision. I don't know what to say about that. But shout out to Trelliker for voicing him. Piggo. Huge shout out to Piggo. I knew for a while he was a perfect character to be one of the most important roles in the entire video, because this was kind of like the reflective role, the character that kind of makes you think back on like the journey and stuff, and kind of pushes the message along that I'm trying to get across. And I thought he was a perfect fit. Perfect fit. But yeah, all of this was really fun. You know, the whole sequence of the 15 egg, I had this idea for a while, and I knew while writing it I wanted to incorporate it, but like the stop motion, you know, stuff of me turning around and stuff, that was crazy. That took a while, because of course I had to switch out of every single outfit and do frame by frame. It was rough. It was really rough, but I love how it turned out at the end. It's perfect. It hits home so well what I was going for with that scene. And of course that shattered screen effect, I love it. I love it so much. There's also a lot of shots that you may have noticed where I get the reflection of the, like, something in my eye. I did it back in Hardboiled City when I came across the help wanted sign, and I did it again here with the 15 egg. And how I did that is I literally took the computer screen, put it right up to my face, and then I put the camera to the side, because you have to make it really close to make it stand out on screen. And I just put the camera really close to my eye and shot it. It's practical, right? That's not fake. That reflection is very real. So that was a really fun thing to film, and I thought it just made it a lot more I don't know, a lot more like deep and dramatic. Fun fact, these 15 egg things, I think I said something different in the director's commentary track, but now that I'm looking back and remembering, the eggs, like the little paper stop motion things, that was the absolute last thing that I filmed. Like in this entire video, that is the absolute last little part that I filmed. So, little fun fact there. And then yeah, the whole scene of me falling over, like the whole message and stuff, like, I talked about that in the director's commentary. Not any crazy editing there, just a lot of, this is, from here on out, this is all stuff that I had planned since the beginning, all the way back during that first 4 months, right, where I was really thinking of the idea and letting this process happen naturally. That all came about during that time. And so that wasn't easy, that wasn't difficult at all to make, because I had that idea for a while. All the challenge of thinking that all up was already done and over with. And then, yeah, you guys may have noticed I used grape jelly as the thing that was falling out of my mouth. You can hear it in the video, you can hear a little plop, but I had a bowl below me that was catching all of it, so I didn't get it everywhere, but I just put it in my mouth and let it fall out, because I didn't have any, I wanted it to be like black goo for the longest time when I was first thinking of, like, when I was first writing the scene, but I was kind of on a time crunch once I came around to making that part, and I don't know, I just had to do it. I just had to get it over with. So I just used the closest thing I could to it, which was jelly. Also, this is where an interesting fact comes into play. There's a lot of impediments that happened throughout this video's production. Like I did have, like VidCon also happened, and that was another time goal. Like originally it was supposed to come out on Easter, then it was going to come out in May, then it was going to come out in June. And then I just said, whatever. So then it was going to come out VidCon. VidCon was my goal. I was like, okay, I need to get this done before VidCon. Then VidCon came around. I wasn't even close. So I keep setting these unrealistic goals for myself, but it's sort of just a way to motivate me to get stuff done. But there was one big deadline that I was really trying to hit, and I still didn't hit, but it did encourage me to kind of grind during these last few worlds, and that was I had to get this tooth removed. I won't get into it, but it wasn't an accident or anything. It's an adult tooth, and I had to get it surgically removed because I have a bunch of health issues with my teeth. But with that, of course, that leaves a gap in my teeth, and I'm not old enough to get an implant yet. So what I had to do is I had to get a retainer with a fake tooth. So that's what I wear in all my videos now. I took it off right now because I had to eat, and I don't want to put it back on right now, and I'm in a rush, but whatever. I'll probably put it back on, but anyways, yeah, so you can notice that I didn't hit the deadline in time. I actually did get a lot done before then. That's why I was rushing with a lot of the production of the worlds, was to like make sure I got it done before I had the surgery done. But then it came around, and I still didn't have that entire ending confrontation done. So you can hear when watching the video, I have a little bit of a lisp because I was wearing the retainer, and that was my first time wearing it, so I wasn't used to it yet. And it was weird. It was crazy. It was a very weird experience, but it wasn't too noticeable, which I'm glad. A lot of people said they couldn't notice it until I mentioned it, so that's good. And then yeah, with that, the UNDERNEST was done, making it the longest segment in the video, I'm pretty sure, yeah. Which I'm glad. I mean, it's the huge climactic part of the entire video, and I definitely think it hit the strongest emotionally. But yeah, very happy with how it turned out. Okay, I actually have to go right now, so there's gonna be a weird time jump, so don't mind that. Okay, I'm back. Anyways, now we're on to the last segment, past, present, and future. But yeah, as I said before, this is the very last sequence in the film, and is really where everything gets wrapped up in a nice little bow, where all of the main points come back full circle. And as I said, this entire part of what something does for you is far more valuable than the thing itself. That whole sequence from the get-go, from the very beginning, has been written, and it was revised multiple times, a lot of time spent to make sure it's perfect, make sure it's good, and I'm once again, very happy with how it turned out. It is a beautiful sequence that just hits all the points that I really wanted to hit. Now, everything after that, when I'm giving this whole speech on Roblox events, that is actually something that was added a little later down the line. Once I finished all the worlds and stuff, I realized there needs to be one more thing, right? One more little thing to show truly how much it matters in terms of like Roblox events, like why Roblox is, I don't know, failing at what they're doing right now, but also, succeeding. There's just so many layers to it. Either way, this is something that also took me a lot of time to write because, man, there was a moment where I was going to have a bunch of stuff I was going to talk about a lot of stuff here, but ultimately I couldn't because 15 announced the sequel to the Great Yolktales right around the time that I was getting around to this part, and it blew everything out of the water. It was quite the plot twist, I'm not gonna lie. So I had to rewrite a lot of the ending and account for it, but in the end, I think it was for the better because it definitely made the video more timeless, and no matter when or where you watch this or who you are, it can still apply to you in some way. But I also think it was hinting at a lot throughout the video, like the state of Roblox events, and I think it's nice to give a final conclusion of my thoughts on where Roblox is at in terms of Roblox events. And then of course you have that final shot of just me overlooking everyone in the lobby. Those are a bunch of viewers that just randomly joined my private server that I asked them to, so thank you to you guys. And then I leave, right? That's when I leave. I get out the book. Then it shows 15 announced Egg Hunt Yolktales Part 2. And this whole sequence, it is what the video is all about, truly. Past, present, and future. It is awesome. It's all these videos that I show of me, those are actual videos from my channel, and it's a very genuine piece, that's for sure. There's nothing ingenuine about any of this. It comes from such a genuine place. But I talk a lot about it in the director's commentary, so if you want to hear more depth on that, then be sure to check it out. But also, in terms of this, there's really nothing else I can say because, again, this is something that was so planned and so carefully executed that, you get the gist. And then, yeah, we got the aftermath. In the end, this video, it did pretty well in terms of, my video standards, and what to expect from, how my videos perform normally, but I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It's definitely my favorite video I have ever made, hands down. Everyone who was a part of it killed it, and everything I wanted to say was, came across in the exact way I wanted it to. It was all around just something I'm so immensely proud of, and so proud of everyone who was involved. But yeah, I went through a lot of different titles. To package this video, I of course reached out and commissioned Himochu, absolute goat. They killed it. I genuinely love everything they did about the thumbnail. They gave me 2 options to work with, and I chose one of the sketches, and I love it so much. It's awesome. The title I've been having trouble with, I changed it a couple times, but right now I settled on, I think for good, I settled on There Will Never Be Another Roblox Egg Hunt 2018, because it just gets the point across of the video, and I think it's pretty catchy, right? Because there truly won't ever be anything like this, but there won't be anything like anything. There will never, you can never, honestly, no matter how hard you try, I really don't think you could replicate anything, because it truly is unique what something does to you and does for you. And I mean, yeah, that's, well, again, that's what's most important. That's the whole point of the video, and I think it hits the themes much better than the original. I can't speak. I think this title hits the themes way better than the original one did. But yeah, after the hatch came out, after that whole fiasco, I put that whole end sequence in, and then honestly, in the end, just wrapped everything up nicely, and yeah, that was great. That was it. The end. Okay, so yeah, I don't know what else to say about this video, except to go on to the Q&A questions. So I asked you guys to ask me some questions, and yeah, let's see what you guys had to say. Python said, wow. Thank you, Python. That's not a question. Okay, hello. Sorry for commenting so much. No, do not worry about it. All your comments mean a lot to me. What is your usual process of coming up with ideas and writing the script / general storytelling? How do you manage to build a narrative where it all comes full circle at the end? To answer the second question, I think to really make it come full circle, you just have to have a good idea of what you're getting yourself into ahead of time. I always, before I ever get into a project seriously, it's a weird way of thinking, but it usually works, is I think of two things. The lighting, okay, the lighting's driving me crazy. Echo, lights off. To make it come full circle at the end, I always go into a video knowing the beginning and knowing the ending. I just do, right? Sometimes even before I know what the story or how the video is going to go, like, I always have the end in mind. That is honestly one of the first things I always think of when making a video. And that might seem like weird, but it works for the most part, because I always know the ending's the most important part of a video, and I always, you know, get the most excited to make an ending, so I just let my mind do that, and I let it make the ending. Anytime I make a short film, like Paradox, our award-winning short film, there might be a lot of noises in the background, I'm sorry. For Paradox, we, you know, when we were writing the script, the first thing we had straight off the bat was the beginning and the ending. Done. That's it. Everything in between we had to fill in throughout. The movie, the feature-length film, me and my friends are working on and have been working on, and hopefully get back to working on soon. But anyways, that we still are writing the in-between, but we have the beginning done and we have the ending done, fully fleshed out. So that's the thing, like, it's just the way that I work, and I don't recommend it because I don't know if it works for everyone, because it genuinely doesn't sound like the best idea, because I think it could be dangerous, because you could, like, honestly underdevelop, I think, the majority of the script or whatever you're working on. But it works for me because I know, like, going into it, like, I have an idea of what the ending's gonna be, but I also have an idea of, like, how possible it is to achieve that ending based off of what storytelling elements I can build up to it during, you know, throughout the video. Yeah, I hope that made sense. That probably made no sense. Hopefully that made sense. But I guess I'm just straight up, like, to build a narrative that comes full circle, like, that is something that I always make sure to spend the most time on. And again, just going in, knowing the ending right off the bat, so I can build up to it. So to answer the first part of that question, my usual process of coming up with ideas and stuff, so, like, it's different for every video, I'm not gonna lie. Like, there is no definitive way there's no structure to the way I make my videos at all. My videos are the most chaotic, unstructured, insane processes ever. Like, they're so spontaneous all the time. And as I said throughout this video multiple times, and throughout the director's commentary, you see how many times I say, oh, this was a very last minute decision. Oh, this was decided upon, you know, right when I was filming it. Like, it's just, my mind works in such a backwards way that I kind of have to work backwards with it to keep up with it. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks that way. I doubt it, but it, you know, I just kind of learned how to work around my mind. And I think that's, like, the only way I can really explain it, because I don't know. Like, for this video in particular, I had the interviews done first, and then I built off of the interviews. And then, like, you know how the interviews were talking about nostalgia, and then, like, I played the game, they talk about nostalgia, and then that's how I brought about the theme of nostalgia. But this next video, a little teaser, this next video I'm working on, this big documentary on Pig 64, I already have the story in mind. I don't have it done or anything. I just have, like, the general outline in mind. But I haven't even done any interviews yet. And it's just like, it truly depends on the topic or what I want to go about. You know, I don't know. I let my mind do its thing, you know. There's definitely no usual process, but it's always a fun one. I always try to make sure it's a fun one, and because my mind is always active. And trust me, I'm always thinking of stuff, dude. It's for better and worse. It is definitely a curse. What made you choose the songs for the soundtrack in the video? I explained this earlier on, and this will be most Q&A questions. I realized that you guys didn't know what I was going to talk about throughout the video, so this is not your fault, but I just, forewarning, I'll probably repeat myself a bit here with some of these. But anyways, what made you choose the songs for the soundtrack in the video is, again, it was a culmination. Yes, it was a culmination of all of these different songs that I've wanted to use for years. And also, it's just whatever was, I've had my basis of, like, songs I knew I wanted to use throughout this video, but there were still, like, little moments where I was like, oh, I don't really know what song I'll use for that, and then I just let it come to me naturally, like, throughout stuff that I watch or consume. Because, like, for example, Deltarune, there was this piece from the soundtrack in this video during the New Beginning segment, and that was because Deltarune came out during that time. Like, obviously, during these past 6 months, Deltarune was 3 and 4 was released, so I used the song from those new chapters, and it was perfect, right? Same thing goes for Severance. Of course, all the Severance songs were because Severance had just come out. So, like, it's just, I don't know, I had ideas for what I wanted to use, but I just went crazy with it, right? Like, this is a very, very rare occasion. Will never, ever happen again. But in particular for this video, there was just, again, no structure. If I thought it sounded cool, I used it. But I also tweaked a lot of the songs, which is something interesting that people don't really realize, because I like to think I hide it so well. But I do edit a lot of the songs used in my videos heavily, because I want them to fit such a specific narrative. For example, during the scene towards the beginning, during A New Beginning as well, where I'm first doing the parkour to exit, like, the broken rubble and stuff, there's a song that plays in the background. What's the name of it? New Star in the Sky by Air French Band. Yeah, so that song that plays when we first meet the bacon hair piano guy, that isn't how the song sounds. There's actually vocals in the song, but I didn't like the sound of it, right? I only like the sound of the instrumental, and I'm not one to, like, use use software that removes vocals and stuff. But there was a lot of, like, blank moments throughout the song where it was just the instrumentals playing. So I just edited around the vocals. I repeated some of the, verses and stuff. Like, I adjusted that song a lot to where it is definitely not how the song normally goes, but it sounds nice because I tried my best to make it sound natural. Anyways, yeah, it's, I choose songs carefully, but I also almost always end up adjusting them in post in some way, shape, or form to still fit the mold of what I want the video to sound like, because the soundtrack is something that is super, super important to me, like, extremely important to me, and is one of the things I value most, because I really do believe, like I said in the video itself, that music heavily drives the story. That's what I take into consideration heavily. How long did it take you to figure out and write the script for the video, and how many pages was it? Well, okay, again, 6.5 months, and then, let me see how many pages. 26 pages. Yeah, that's quite a bit. Why and how does your green screen self look so good? It almost feels like you're actually inside that world. And how did you do the tag swear word thing that you broke at the end? Well, thank you. that means a lot, because I do spend the most time working on the green screen to make sure it looks pretty good. And I don't know, I use a lot of LUTs, a lot of film grain. You also got to kind of keep into consideration like the focal length and the angle of your shot. So like for instance, the camera I'm using to film this right now, I'm using a 55mm lens that is angled at me head on, right? So with that, I then in Roblox, if I wanted to put a shot behind me, I have to kind of keep that same depth while also keeping that same angle. So I would have to shoot kind of straight ahead with a little bit of leeway looking up, because of course the height of Roblox avatars versus real life is a little inconsistent. But it's also interesting because like if you use a shorter lens like my 14mm lens here, then you would have to start thinking differently, because that kind of like stretches the image out a little bit. It's hard to explain, but there's like some good demonstrations out there of like how focal length kind of alters your shape of your face and stuff, and it's very interesting stuff. Very, very interesting. And I don't know, it's all stuff you got to think about, but it's also just a lot of like experience working on this stuff, right? Because I've been using green screens for quite a while now, and I've become pretty familiar with the ins and outs of like really understanding how to make it look good. But also I still don't know everything. Like I'm not anywhere near perfecting that skill, because I watched this video over again and I noticed so many like faults with all of the shots and all of the green screen work that it just drives me crazy, right? But of course I'm saying that from the perspective of someone who's been spending months at a time working on it, right? Of course I'm going to notice that little imperfection, but for the most part, seeing comments like this like lets me know like, man, it honestly did come out really good, and I'm very happy about that. But yeah, there's just so many aspects, like the feathering and the, you know, the different like the mixing and the spilling of, you know, the color. There's so much that goes into it. And again, I also chose outfits that kind of made it easier for me to green screen myself. But there's a lot, you know, a lot of different aspects. To answer the second part, how did you do this, you know, the swear word thing that I broke at the end, that's something that I made. I used a drumstick. I don't have it right here now. I used a drumstick, and then I just, of course, made that little thing at the end and taped it onto there. Every single instance it shows up in the video, it's a green screen. So like I have my original self, but then that swing down of the you know, the sensor bar, that is on top of a green screen. So I'm green screening on top of a green screen on top of a Roblox recording whenever that happens. But there's one instance when it is actually physically swinging down when I'm like actually there, so like it's not a green screen, and that's of course the very last scene where I break it, because I actually have to pull it out of the side and then break it. For that, I just got my brother to go, you know, to the side and swing it down. And that took a little while, I'm not gonna lie, because he had to really choreograph that, but it was nice. And then also one thing I do want to shout out and mention, because I never really mentioned this throughout this video, surprisingly, but I think it's also just all about the lighting and the setup that really makes the green screen, you know, pop and work well. That's another thing that just comes with experience. You know, you just got to really know what makes the green screen easier to key comparatively, and there's also so many camera settings that go into it. And then I had this like little rinky-dink setup where it was I had the TV, I film in my basement, so I had the TV on the side, and I connect the camera to the TV through an HDMI cable, and that camera is of course shooting at the green screen, which has the two lights on the side aimed at it. And then you know, those lights were adjusted a lot to both light the green screen plus me. But I also have to make sure our lighting is separate, because if we wash out myself and the green screen with the same colored lighting, then you would have issues when keying, because it's too similar of colors. You need a vastly different color spectrum with the two subjects so that they can stand out more and be easily keyed more. But there was instances, like there was problems I was running into, because like the floor and the ceiling of the basement that I film in it's not actually like pure white, but it's a lighter white color, so it reflects light easier. So that became a problem when the green screen floor was kind of you know, the lights on the side, it bounced off of that green screen floor, turning the light green and then reflecting onto my face, giving my face a kind of greenish hue. And then also the TV screen that was showing me a live image of, you know, the camera, because I needed to be able to see the shot easier because it's a manual focus lens. That green light from the camera feed also reflected onto my face, so that green reflection makes it it makes it so much harder to key stuff evenly, because then it thinks like your face is some shade of green, which then it removes a little bit of it because it's a green screen, right? So there's so many things you have to think about. So like there were so many instances that was so tedious that I had to set up shots and turn off the TV and then go back to the shot. That I especially had to do that with the scenes when I was using the book, because for those scenes I had to get really close to the camera, and because of that I also was getting really close to the TV that was reflecting the green. So when I was really close to the camera holding the book, you could see the green very clearly reflected onto the book, which then caused problems in post, where the book would then start disappearing in the image because of how much green was actually on it. So I had to keep turning off the TV. Every time I had this shot set up, I turned, you know, I was holding the book, right? I was looking at the TV, and you know, once the book was there and everything was set up and I was looking, okay, everything's good, I quickly turned off the TV, dropped the remote, and then did the scene, and then stopped the recording. It was so much. But in the end, it was worth it, okay? It was worth it. It was. And again, thank you for that compliment, because yes, that means a lot. What part of the video did you resonate with the most? That's a good question. It does tie in heavily with the theme, right? Of like, you know, to really resonate about the past and not like spend so much time lost in it, but kind of just hold that close to your heart and cherish it rather than letting it consume you. But I've had a lot of moments throughout this video's production that I kind of look back on with nostalgia now, funnily enough. Not to like kind of lose the meaning of that word, but I look back at, you know, some of these moments in production very fondly because of how long this process took. So like the musical number is one of the most, you know, it is one of the most resonant parts of the production that just stick with me so much because of how many people had involved and how fun it was, and just how it was in such a, you know, important time in school and stuff. Like it was just a very key moment. But I think what you mean here is like what part of the video like resonated with me the most, with like the message, what message hit me the hardest, I guess. And with that, I would obviously say the entire sequence of the past, present, and future, that whole first part with the winner is background music, where my younger self starts playing the game, and then it ends with me like shutting the door, and that's the part where it says like, what something does for you is far more valuable than the thing itself. Like that is by far the part that resonated with me the most, by far, easily. It is a very powerful moment, and I mean it did with a lot of people as well, which I'm very happy to see. Will there be a behind-the-scenes video about it? Yes, and you're in it. Also, what do you love about producing these types of videos? Loved everything about it. Thank you for making it. Thank you for watching it. I love just working with people. I say that all the time, but I try to make these experiences that I can, you know, share with other people. And I have a lot of friends that's also interested in this field, but like more so in front of the camera. So it's always fun to incorporate them. And I tell people all the time, like, I've gotten offers before where it's like, oh, here's this, you know, very talented person. I highly recommend working with them and or hiring them for your work. But I don't usually do that. I still do that from time to time, but I don't usually do that because I usually prioritize friends who like say that they would love to help out with my video, and I have like this long list of friends who are willing to do, you know, stuff for my videos, and that I always prioritize because it's always such a fun experience working with people. Again, like the musical number was by far my favorite part to make in this video, and the part I think about the most because of just how fun it was to work with Average, Henry, and Gracie on the entire segment. It was awesome. It really was awesome. But yeah, that's my favorite part of making these videos. And then I think my second favorite part just has to be watching your guys' reaction. I'm so glad I made this video premiere. I've never done that before for one of these videos, but I'm so glad I did it for this one, because it blew my mind how much people loved the video. I was so nervous that people were gonna not really get it, or not like it, or not, you know, understand where I was coming from with it, but I had nothing to worry about because you guys were awesome, and that put a big smile on my face, so thank you. And also, huge shout out to everyone who donated, like, gifted subs during the video, right? Like, because I know, I'm sorry I couldn't turn the donation feature on, but even then, like, it doesn't matter, because this is what matters most, right? Like, it was just so awesome to see. So thank you guys, everyone who did that, thank you. How did you find people whose voices perfectly match the characters in each world? Again, I let it's kind of opposite, right? I didn't have the characters in mind, and then I got the voice actors and actresses for it. I had the voice actors and actresses in mind first, and then I found NPCs in-game to match them. So then I kind of built the character around the person voicing them. What does the man playing the piano represent? Is there a reason why it switches from a bacon to you in black and white? This is something that I went into, you know, deep detail on in the director's commentary track. But so, you know, if you really want the, you know, the details about that, be sure to check that out. But put simply, the man playing the piano, that bacon hair, that is just the person. You know, it's just, that whole realm is meant to represent people who are not in control. So, like, obviously, it's like the logical part of my mind, like my deeper, like, inner thoughts that know the truth, and, like, it's kind of like the id, ego, and super ego, right? Like, I'm gonna mix it up. I think this is like the ego, where, no, because the super ego, hold on. So, like, that's like the ego is like the person who, the part of you that like mediates between the id and the super ego, and the id is the person who is like following its desires without really thinking, and that's like the nostalgic part of me. So that's like the black and white version who's going without thinking, and it's like taking control, right? Because in psychology, like, what part of those three dominate your mind the most really tells a lot about who you are as a person. And it's kind of just a big forewarning to, like, think logically, right, and not get too deep. You know, don't let your emotions control you too much to the point where you kind of lose who you are as a person. But, you know, the realm of me and the piano realm and stuff, that is, again, that would be considered the ego. I guess you can consider me in the game, like me in the world's the super ego, because that's the person who's like going for what's best for everyone else. And then, of course, again, the person in the nostalgic area is the id. And so, you know, the bacon in that scenario is just another device to show that whole space realm represents the parts that are not in control, right? Because the bacon is obviously not in control of itself. It is controlled by me, and it's controlled by players. Like, that is pretty straightforward. Like, that's, I'm not saying it's obvious. I'm saying, like, I'm being, like, very literal with that metaphor there, so that you can kind of connect the dots and be like, okay, so then me in the suit and the red tie is also not in control, even though that's like the logical part of my mind. So it's just all about that. So then when at the end, the reason it switches from the bacon to the black and white version just shows, like, the black and white version is going so far to, like, go, you know, be like corrupt these other parts of the mind. Like, even though it was considered throughout the film like a safe space for these parts, you know, like for the bacon hair and for the logical version of me, that's I try to make that, like, him going into that realm, like that part of me, the black and white version, it showcases how it's breaking down the barriers, and to make it more impactful, that, like, it really nowhere is safe because of how much control this part of me is taking over, you know? No idea if that made sense, but I promise you I had a lot of thinking, and, you know, stuff. I spent a lot of time on that part, a lot of thinking, and yeah, hopefully it made sense. How do you do the storytelling? The vid was amazing. Thank you so much. That's a pretty vague question, pretty broad, so I don't really know specifically what you mean by that. I guess I kind of answered that with the other question, But I guess just, again, how I do the storytelling is just I figure out first what my message is, what I want to say in a video. Well, of course, first I have my topic, but then I figure out strictly what I want to say through this topic, what message I want to portray, and then I just build the story off of the message. And I always try to be unique with the story, you know, try and find different cool stories to tell with each of my videos. Like the Pig 64 one, I'm very excited about it, that I'm writing right now. I'm thinking of like some crazy ideas for the story. I'm very hyped about that, but it always just, it comes naturally. It does. I don't think too much about it. Of course, I do think a lot about it once I get into the details of it, but like once, you know, starting off, if I find an idea cool, I usually just go for it. Was the song about the Scrambled Dreams original? No, Land of Scrambled Dreams, again, I wouldn't consider it original. I would consider it a parody, because of course the vocals, all of that work is completely original, done by, you know, Average and the backup singers. But, you know, the lyrics is somewhat original, and, you know, somewhat new, because again, we based it entirely off of the original lyrics, but we twisted it around to fit our own mold and make it our own song. But then obviously the instrumentals are completely unoriginal. Those were purchased from another source, Sing Broadway now, I think, and they're just straight from the original musical. So no, I would not consider it original. How long did editing take? What took longer, editing or filming? That's hard to say. Because how I did it is I kind of like filmed some, then edited some, then filmed some, then edited some during that whole last 2.5 months of this entire production. So I would say they're pretty equal. I guess you could say that editing took slightly longer, because of course filming, it's just a quick, that's like a one-night thing, while editing is split over the course of a couple of days. But I usually don't spend too much time like dedicated to editing at once. Rather than filming, I do spend a lot of time at once dedicated to that, because I usually have to get big chunks of filming done and out of the way. With editing, you know, you can just do it whenever. There's not much setup that required to get into that. What was your favorite part of the video, and how did you remove the green screen so good? I'm not going to cover the green screen question because I covered that before already, but favorite part of the video, and also thank you for liking the video, by far Hardboiled City, like the entirety of it, because the Ready Player One segment gave me chills. It was so sick. The Festival of Eggs segment, that was a very, you know, hard-hitting message that I'm very happy about. And then of course the musical number. I mean, come on, man, come on. Besides that, I do think the beginning of past, present, and future, that segment, love that as well. Because the Goats 5th team are making an egg hunt follow-up to this, any plans on making a video for that? Most likely not. I don't usually make videos for no reason, and I couldn't find a reason to make a video on the sequel to 5th team's egg hunt rather than just doing a follow-up. And I don't usually do follow-ups because I feel like I would need an entirely new purpose and message to make that video, and I don't think I would be able to find it, to be completely honest. So yeah, probably not, but never say never, but most likely never. I will say I am heavily considering streaming it though, like streaming the entire playthrough of it, because I feel like it's only fitting. And I mean, it's a very exciting moment that a lot of us have been waiting for a long time, so I think that would be fun to kind of document, so probably might stream that. What was the most difficult part of the entire documentary? I gotta think about that. I think on a psychological level, just trying to conceptualize how to tie in all these messages I wanted to tell or portray with an entire, you know, storyline, with, you know, an actual like coverage of the entire event, with on top of that interviews that I have to tie into it. Like finding that common thread that, you know, brings all these different pieces of the puzzle together was by far the most challenging part, and is why this video took so long. It's why those first 4 months were dedicated to it, because I just really let my mind take its time with that, because I didn't want to stress that, because I feel like then it would have not came out the way it did, and it wouldn't have been as valuable. But I mean, it really, that's how big of a hassle it was to really conceptualize in my head. And if you mean like technical, like physically, like what was the most difficult part, then that was by far the green screen work. I mean, obviously that is always the most difficult part. Green screening is never easy, and it will never get easier. How long did it take you to record and script everything? I answer that. But again, it's 6.5 months. First 2 months were spent to prep everything and do the interviews. The next 2 months were spent kind of writing things. And then the last 2.5 months were spent filming and editing. Do you think the event was the best Roblox event ever? And then the reply says, I could only guess what he'll answer with. In my eyes, yes, it is I consider it my favorite Roblox event of all time. But you know, there's such a big debate there, and that's honestly what I was trying to hit home with the video about, like, there's such a big difference between something being objectively the best and something being your favorite, right? Because what you take away from something and, you know, the memories that you make with something, that is far more valuable than how you can, you know, how good it actually is, right? Like, on a technological and on a physical, tangible standpoint, I can't think of the words right now. I don't know why I'm blanking so much, but on that level, it is, you know, a whole different plane, and that doesn't compare to truly just how you feel after experiencing something. That's why you find, like, no matter how much you tell people, like, oh man, EggHunt 2018 was so good because of so-and-so and so-and-so, and it's just far above anything else because of how advanced it was, it still doesn't even matter if they are talking about, like, an event like EggHunt 2013 that they played all those years ago. Like, maybe they played it with a friend that they don't speak to anymore, or like it was during a time of their life that they cherish. Like, that will always stick to people, you know, and mean more to them than anything else. And I think that's totally valid, and that's why, you know, I kind of made this video. And so again, I guess I don't consider it the best Roblox event ever because I don't think I can, but it is by far my favorite, by far. How did I get the whole musical thing set up? There's an entire segment of this video spent to that, so I'm just gonna assume you watched that, but if you didn't, then go watch that part. But it took a good 2 weeks to film, you know, it's not film, but good 2 weeks to record all the vocals and, you know, organize all the music to go with it, while it took then a day to film all the visuals and then a couple days to edit it. But yeah, it was a whole process. Do you have any staff or people that help you with your videos? This is something I guess I don't really ever talk about, but I guess I will set the record straight for my lovely channel members here. There are obviously people that help me with my videos, but they are, I still think I can consider them almost entirely a solo journey. Like, these are all, this is all a one-man show. I do pretty much 99%, that's not fair. I do like 97% of the work in my videos, and I just don't say that because I don't really like to gloat about it, but I, you know, like, editing, I do entirely myself. I've never ever had somebody edit something for me for my video, except one occasion during the Roblox Myth Files where Mimahoy did his animation segment for that. So obviously he edited that segment himself, but then I edited that individual segment into the rest of the video. So, like, everything is edited by me. I do not have a team whatsoever because I don't have the money for that, obviously. But also, I just would never do that because I love doing this stuff. Like, that is my favorite part of these videos, and I feel like if I'm not the one editing them, then it's kind of defeating the purpose of me making videos at all, because this is truly what I love to do. And it just makes me all the more proud, like, at the end when people watch it, because I know, like, man, I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this video. Like, it just makes it all the more rewarding. But, you know, and then same goes for writing, but like writing, and then when you get a little iffy, like, of course everything is 1000% written by me, but every now and then I have people get second opinions on my writing, right? So like there's a few times every now and then when I have that happen, or there's times where I have actors and actresses make up, you know, their own lines, but other than that, pretty much everything's written by me. And then thumbnails is the one thing that I am like awful at. So obviously, you know, there is a lot of videos I do make my own thumbnails, but those are usually the worst thumbnails. So like for occasions like this, I had somebody do the thumbnail, but it's not like a regular occurring thing. And that goes for any other thing, you know, that I have people help me with. Every aspect of this video that I have people help me with, like, it's not a reoccurring team. It's always just whoever I can think of, or whoever's available, or whoever offers at the time, right? And I think that also makes these videos all the more memorable, because they're like little pockets of time, that kind of little time capsules of that era of my life that I can look back on with, you know, fond memories. And then when it comes to filming, you know, I have my brother help me out every now and then, but again, mostly me. And then, of course, the biggest help that I get is with like voice acting. So everyone who did voice acting is very talented. But yeah, no staff. I don't have a team. I don't have anything like that. I don't know if you guys realize, but I talk about this a lot. But if you're not aware, I'm still in high school. Like, I'm not even an adult yet. So it's like I don't have the time, energy, resources, none of that to have a team. And at this point in my life, I wouldn't even want one, because again, this is kind of just not only a job, but it's also something that I love to do, and I consider it a hobby. So I love having as much influence on these videos as possible. And I say that like I do have a team. Like, I make these videos, okay? These are all me. All right? I'll just consider it that. Of course, there's those exceptions that I just discussed. So, are you going to release Land of Scrambled Dreams on Spotify? No, because I can't. I mean, obviously, again, it's a parody of a song, so it's not mine. I don't own it, and the instrumentals are just completely not mine. So the only thing is really the vocals. So, like, I guess I could just upload the vocals, but you don't want that. You want the music. So what I can do, though, is something that I've actually done before with my Minecraft end poem video. You can upload it as a podcast, and it kind of acts the same way as a song. It's just considered a podcast. So if you guys want me to, I can do that. Just let me know what you want. I can either upload it as a podcast where I have the entire scene, so that it actually is like including like me walking into the bar and like the in-between with Creekcraft talking and stuff, or I can upload it as just the plain song with no accompanying visuals. So let me know what you guys want, but I can do that. And lastly, so you Gunt Pro or what? Okay. And with that is all the questions. Thank you guys. That's actually some great questions. Yeah, after all that, the video's done, and I look back on it very proud, but it definitely shouldn't have taken as long as it did. But whatever. The past is the past. I've never really sat down and like covered an event to this scale. I've never like talked with devs and stuff like this. Like, this is a lot of firsts, and I hope I did a good job not only making an enjoyable, entertaining video, but doing the event justice and kind of, paying respects to that period in Roblox history, and also setting a good precedent for the future of what's to come. Because that's always what I try to do with my videos. I always try to use them as some form of activism in a way where, I try to make sure they have some sort of impact if possible. But yeah, that was the EggHunt 2018 Great Yolktales documentary. That was the behind the scenes video for it. Hopefully I covered everything you guys were wondering, but if I didn't, please let me know in the comments if you have any further questions. I'll just reply to them. But I did want to try and get this done ASAP so that the people who are only here for the month can watch it and enjoy it. But yeah, be sure to check out the video. Again, leave a like. I'm saying subscribe like you're not already because you're members, but either way, thank you guys so much again for everything. And yeah, I will be going on to work on my next documentary. So wish me luck with that. Hopefully it won't take as long as this did, but yeah. Alright, this was already a long video, so let me get this done. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you for being a member. Pixel Patrollers, peace out.